Luis, I have a question. How do I change my name on the screen here? It says Office Barbo, which is the room I'm in, and my last. I figured I'd switch it up.
I believe. Can you? I think there's like three. I guess what do you call it? I guess dots on the side. Maybe you can change your name that way.
Yeah, I could try. It's not make or break.
Okay.
It's all good. I'll skip it for now.
Can you hear the video?
Can I hear? No. No.
Of course not. Of course not. Anyway, so that's that. So welcome to Startup Grind San Diego. I am your host, Luis Martinez, Director for Startup Grind San Diego. We're here for Funding Month that's sponsored by Oracle for Startups. So shout out to them. Also shout out to American Express, our other sponsor, and shout out to Founders Card as well. All the information can be looked up on our website. Just look up Startup Grind San Diego, and all the information is there for you to see. Well, today we welcome Mr. Cody Barbo of Trust and Will. How are you doing this afternoon or this evening, depending on?
Good, yeah. 4 o'clock on the West Coast. The day is young. Doing well. We had a board meeting yesterday, so weights off the shoulders. We have some follow-up materials to send out, but no, I'm doing great today. Nice.
I definitely need to learn more about how that goes. I'm actually building a side startup of my own, so definitely. We'll get into the nitty gritty of those things. So tell us, let's talk about humble beginnings. Are you originally from San Diego? Are you from California? Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I grew up in Huntington Beach, California, so Orange County, so not too far away. And for those that don't know, Huntington Beach is Surf City, USA. It is where one of the largest US-based surf competitions is every year. And for me and a lot of my friends growing up, that's what we did. That was our sport. For some people, it's baseball, it's football, it's soccer. But for us, a lot of people surfed competitively, and it was an amazing place to grow up. I was kind of a quiet kid, despite my extroverted, tall self. Now I had a small group of friends, stayed out of trouble, got good grades, and had a great relationship with my family. And I never thought that I would be on this path to entrepreneurship as I am today. My parents mostly worked hospitality throughout their careers. And, I made my way down to San Diego in 2007 to go to school at San Diego State University, which was an amazing experience, not just for the education, but also for the extracurricular experience, because I very much wanted to break out of my shell. I was kind of a quieter kid, didn't have a huge network, and I wanted to build this confidence in myself. And one of the ways that I did that was through various leadership roles throughout my time as a college student. And my biggest achievement, I guess, when I finished school was I was student body president at San Diego State. And the thing that's unique about this role is that at 21 years old, you're CEO for the year of a $30 million 501c3 nonprofit. It's an auxiliary organization to the university. You're signing off on this huge budget, 80 full-time employees, 1,000 part-time. We manage and operate 7 facilities on and off campus, from the recreation center to the basketball arena where the Aztecs play, to the Mission Bay Aquatic Center. And more so than anything, this idea of shared governance at San Diego State, you serve on the board of directors of the other auxiliary organizations, the Research Foundation, which manages hundreds of millions in federal, state, and private research grants. Sit on the board of Aztec Shops, which oversees all of our food and beverage, all of our residence halls, huge organization. And then also the Campanile Foundation, which is the university's endowment, which we actively raise over $100 million per year from alumni and supporters. And for us at San Diego State, one of the largest schools of the 23 in the Cal State system, just immersed myself in such a different amongst, groups of people, very successful alumni, et cetera. Just got exposed to so much at a very young age that it kind of gave me this confidence to want to go down the path of entrepreneurship. So it was an awesome time, and I'm really proud of that experience. It's still loyal to SDSU today.
That's dope. That's definitely dope. So did you, besides being the student body president, did you have any other entrepreneurial experiences prior to that?
Not really. The leadership roles, I guess, a little bit, because the common thread between leadership roles in school that I've carried with me now, 13, 14 years later, is being the president of different student organizations. You have to set a clear vision. You have to be a mission-driven organization with a clear set of values, and your job is to constantly get the right people on board. Recruitment is at least 3 companies in now in this last decade. That is the lifeblood of your company's success. You recruit the right people, you set the vision, you keep them inspired, keep them motivated, and of course you keep the lights on, either through revenue or venture funding, at least to start. You're naturally going to find this path to success. And one of the things as a student leader from 18 to 22 years old that I kind of uncovered and surfaced is you should constantly be looking to replace yourself with somebody better than you. And as a CEO of now a successful startup, kind of thinking through the journey these last 3 years, you're firing yourself from these roles. You're looking to find in that expert on marketing or sales or partnerships, engineering, design, and more. And that was the nice thing, is that it kind of gave me this very early framework for how to think about replacing myself. Because you wear every hat when you're a founder. You do a little bit of everything. You have to, because you don't have the resources. And that was it was a really special time. I reflect back on it often, and I'm really proud that I was able to experience it. But it was fun times. I miss those days sometimes.
That's dope. That's definitely dope. So before we get into the good stuff, I want to get into the journey of you being an entrepreneur. So I know previously you had, before Trust and Will, you had another startup or a couple other startups prior to Trust and Will. So let's get into that. What was your first startup?
I think that the honest answer is I didn't want to grow up and go get some big boy job at a big fancy company, despite my parents' preference. But I maybe I'll dial it back just a little bit. I've always been passionate about technology, a bit of a geek most of my life. I used to cut class. Hopefully my high school teachers aren't watching this. I would cut class when Steve Jobs would do his Apple keynotes, not even joking. And we didn't have smartphones at the time. This was pre-iPhone. This is 2003, 2000 to 2006. So I'd skip class, I'd go to the library, which is the only place on school that had internet, and I'd watch the live streams, which at the time were super spotty and granular. But I ended up working at the Apple store my freshman year of college. I just naturally wanted to work for Apple. Just super inspired by Steve Jobs and the innovation coming from that company. But when I finished school, my first startup just kind of happened by accident. I had a buddy who was still in school. We did a startup that we called Niche, Niche. And we really kind of were thinking it as the lens of almost like a Pokemon Go for content. We'd go to all these places that mattered to us. You'd go to a music festival or a concert or your favorite restaurant, or I was 21 at the time. Go to your favorite restaurant or bar and hang out with your friends. But you could be at home on your couch, take a selfie, hashtag it Coachella, and it at the time would show up in the feed. So we wanted to have location be this like unique element to, if you're going to go and be somewhere, the FOMO is that if you weren't there, you didn't know what happened. So you would be the key. You and your phone combined would be the key to unlock content at different places. If you ended up at the Polo Grounds where they held Coachella Festival, you would actually unlock the content. If you went to your favorite bar or restaurant was popping off that night, you would get to see everything that had happened the last couple hours. Mm-hmm. And that content wouldn't be shared as publicly on Instagram or on Facebook at the time. And this is 2011 to 2013. So like there weren't a lot of social media apps like there are today. So we really were looking at it through this unique lens of beyond ephemeral messaging, which Snapchat had just came onto the scene, but really with location being that core function. And that's something that Instagram stories has basically become a decade later. But, that startup, we recruited a bunch of MBAs. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just thought it was fun. We should have moved up to the Bay Area. If I actually could go back in time, I think if we moved up to San Francisco and pitched investors and pitched some engineers, I think actually we could have built something pretty unique. But that space got super saturated when Snapchat turned down the buyout from Facebook for $3 or $4 billion in 2013. We saw hundreds of competitors, very well funded, pop up almost within a month or two, and just decided to call it quits. And that co-founder went on to have a very successful run at Movement Watches. He's now at Cuts Clothing, a very successful e-commerce brand. And I went through this transition in 2013 where I was like, okay, I need to make some money now because I can't get any more help from mom or dad for Costco or for anything else. So I ended up going and working at a restaurant in downtown San Diego, and getting that job was a total pain in the ass. I mean, I remember hitting the pavement, going up and down Gaslamp, going through Little Italy, dropping off resumes in PB, firing off emails on Craigslist to anybody that had an opening just to make some cash. I didn't really want to drive for Lyft or Uber that much at the time. And I just was like, I felt like I was just throwing my resume in a black hole. Like I never knew if they looked at it. I never knew if they wanted to talk to me. It was just really loose. And I hated that. I still ended up with an amazing gig. But we hired 160 people at this restaurant, and some of them have been in hospitality for 5, 10, 15 years. And almost everyone across the board used a paper resume. This is 2013 into 2014. Used a paper resume to apply. And I started seeing some of the chefs in my network that at different restaurants were posting on Instagram. I'd see some of the bartenders call themselves a mixologist and start making cocktails, posting that on Instagram. And I started asking around. I'm like, hey, are any of you on LinkedIn? And no one was on LinkedIn. In fact, some people never even heard of it. And at the time, I was like, it's a 25 billion market cap company. Like, how have you not heard of it? But if you're not in a white collar professional job, like why would you be on LinkedIn? The way that like a doctor, why would a doctor be on LinkedIn?
Exactly.
So I really felt this like need to want to build some sort of LinkedIn for hospitality and to help people find a career path as they use photos and videos to leverage their brands the way that we naturally do on all social platforms now, but at the time was unique. And then for restaurants and bars, especially the small business owners, like 70% of all restaurants are owned by mom and pops. And they spend so much time and money on recruitment that they can't calculate it. They're spending $4,000 to $5,000 trying to recruit someone. And if that hire doesn't work out, they fire them in the first month, or that person leaves, or they don't show up, you're left with starting over again. So this turnover was insanely high. Restaurants, bars, hotels were hiring either the wrong people, it wasn't a culture fit, or they're just looking at it as a stepping stone in between their careers. It was a huge mess on both sides of the marketplace. So my co-founders, who came from a hospitality background, we decided to go all in on it. So from 2013 through 2016, we built up a small team, raised $250,000 angel round, ended up raising $2.5 million in a seed round, grew the team to 25. And we were servicing about 12 markets, mostly on the West Coast, with kind of a monthly subscription for the small business owner and then enterprise level contracts for big restaurant groups, big hotel chains. And it was going great, to be honest. I mean, we had this amazing team, great culture, and hundreds of thousands of followers on social, in the product, that were loyal to it was called Industry. And ultimately it fizzled out real quick. So April board meeting, 2017, board meeting was okay, nothing major red flag. And then over the next couple months, I noticed the relationship between one of our major investors and I started to strain a little bit. And then I came into the office on June 15th, 2017, walked in. They set the expectation that we were there to review finances, which I didn't seem out of the ordinary to me at all. And I had a sales call that morning, walked into the boardroom. It's my co-founders, the investor, and one of his associates. And I'm sitting at the boardroom table, and I'm handed a stack of papers by my co-founder, and I'm told, Cody, today's your last day with Industry. We thank you for everything that you've done and wish you luck on your next endeavor. I thought it was a prank. I'm sitting there with a stack of papers that I clearly didn't look at, with no indication from the previous board meeting until this moment that my performance as CEO was in question. And I came into this thinking, why is this the first time that's coming up? So I kept it cool. I kept my calm. I was like, hey, look, this is obviously coming out of the blue. I'm completely blindsided here, but like, why wasn't this brought up at the last board meeting? Why wasn't this brought up in our weekly co-founder meeting? And if I'm not the right person to be CEO, why would you not work with me to find the right person? Like, I'm not here for the title. I'm here so that we can drive us towards our vision and mission of helping people succeed in their careers within hospitality. And I wasn't given the opportunity to be in a different role. I wasn't given any opportunity to sit on the board as an observer. And basically, we had some other conversations that I can't disclose here on the group call, but like basically within 30 minutes, this is early in the morning, went from CEO of Industry, a company with 25 employees, raised millions of dollars, truly helping tens of thousands of people and thousands of small business owners, to that being my last day with the business. Grabbed my bag, packed up, and walked out of the co-working space, and that was it. And this is on a Thursday, mid-morning. My wife was at work. I went to the mall. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I was like, do I go home? Like, where am I supposed to go? Like, I was sort of kind of disoriented. I felt like it was a dream. It didn't actually happen. Mm-hmm. And I remember even that night and the next morning, I didn't tell my wife. I woke up the same time I normally do, woke up, I went to the gym, and then I came right back home. And I called our corporate counsel that represented the company. I was like, hey, what am I supposed to do here? Like, should I talk to an attorney? And he's like, yeah, it's probably best just to get some closure. But like, I still had equity in the company, so I didn't want to go after them. And I was like, maybe I wasn't the right CEO. So like, I was in this like weird mindset. I was like, is this what I want? do I just accept reality here? Like I was basically fired, and not for anything I did wrong, just they want to take it in a different direction. So I got an attorney involved just to get some closure. So company signed off on it. I signed off on it, obviously. And then in July, less than a month later, I wrote this LinkedIn post that went viral, and it's still live on my LinkedIn today, but it got about 25,000 hits within, a day or two. The Business Journal picked it up, kind of a marquee story on the startups. And we were a seed stage startup. We're not classy. We're not like the hottest startup in town at the time.
Yeah.
Big deal. And like when I finally shared this, it really threw my entire network a major curveball. Like no one saw this coming at all. And it was really tough, but I think what the rewarding part is, and if you look back at the post and all the comments, I mean, like 99.9% positive. I don't even think there was a single negative comment, because my whole intention is let's take the higher road. Like, look, what happened. I want to move forward. I want the company to still succeed because selfishly I have equity and I hope that they crush it. And it took a month or two to self-discovery. It was like, do I go work for a big company and figure out what's next, or do I go do a startup? Which I'll pause here before I continue. I've been talking a lot, but for me, it was a really, really hard time. I felt totally betrayed by people that I thought I trusted with my life. I mean, one of the co-founders was going to be a groomsman in my wedding. He was very much not, if you could guess that. And I felt betrayed on my integrity and values, and I never felt that in my life to this severity before. So I did some deep introspection, a lot of meditation, and just kind of reflection on like where did I drop the ball, or where were these kind of points throughout the like previous 6 months that there were indicators on what ultimately happened. Yeah.
So this is interesting because my background is in organizational training and development. So I'm going to put that hat on for a second.
Yeah.
And leadership. So I don't understand. Now help me understand this without obviously kind of putting people on blast or anything like that. But
yeah,
was there any type of protocol to where, every month or, every quarter or something, whatever, where they're checking up on you to see how you're doing, or any performance reviews, anything of that sort, to where, there might have been some indication, or even if they say, hey, by the way, we're concerned with, this and this, and, we want to make sure that we're getting on the right path. And like, there was none of that.
No, we had a lot of process in place. I mean, you have to. We were, from 16, when we closed our seed round, 16 employees, grew that to 25. We had done like 2 or 3 board meetings from the closing of that seed round until my departure. But, like the goal, there's a major cultural difference with our major investor that I probably shouldn't disclose publicly, but effectively very, very young, inexperienced board director, not qualified to make the calls or call the shots, is probably the better term, and set an unrealistic goal that we had to hit in terms of growth, like completely unrealistic, that I was not ready to commit to. I remember calling other founders at similar stage or a stage ahead of us. I'm like, hey, like, what should I do here? And I had one founder who I have immense respect for, who's like, you have one obligation, 4 times per year, give them a quarterly update. You guys as co-founders collectively own more equity than them. And you're a seed stage company. Like, you're not some big company. So it's like, outside of your quarterly board meetings and your financial reportings, he's like, you don't have to talk to them at all. And I was like, that's a good point. So I remember having a couple conversations with my co-founders. I'm like, guys, these are unrealistic numbers they want us to hit. Like, we're probably going to hit half of what they're expecting, but like, to get to this number of growth that they want is not something we should commit to. And the only thing that came up was like about 2 or 3 days before I was let go. I was always first one in the office. I kind of prided myself being first one in, which wasn't that early. It's like 8 a.m. But yeah, I came in, my 3 co-founders were there before me that day, which I thought was unusual. And I was like, hey, like, why didn't you guys hit me up? I would have happily come in. Like, oh, we're just doing some product review, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, whatever. Just didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until 2 days later that I was let go that I kind of connected the dots there. But maybe to kind of give you a little more context. So when I was let go, the crypto wave of 2017 took over, like total rocket ship in the crypto markets. We see ICOs popping up and people making buku bucks for the first time ever, like unrealistic amounts of money, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. So the entire company, and I'm assuming it was decided mostly by the co-founders and this investor, tried to build towards this ICO for industry tokens. It'd be a digital currency that you could exchange for food and beverage and between hospitality workers. And they built this case over the next, 2-3 quarters to try and launch this ICO. Ultimately getting pushed out, and I see more people leave from the company by their own accord or let go. And then we have in the January of 2018, the crypto market crashed and they pivoted back to the main business. Now they're 4 people at the time, probably burned through a lot of their cash, completely tossed out the ICO industry token model. And they've managed to operate, but now you have pandemic that hit hospitality hard. And like, it hurts because like, for me, it's not a karma thing. I'm just like, this is something I spent 3.5 years of my life doing that like very much unraveled, not to the size and scale of a, WeWork story, but like, I felt really personally connected to this mission of why we started that company. And watching it from afar as it already started building trust, I was like, maybe I was never the problem. I was maybe the person that could have gotten us through the next 6 months, gotten us through a Series A, and we could have kept building that business up. And yeah, just I have a lot of thoughts without getting kind of personal about it. But it's just sad. Like more than anything, like we missed a massive opportunity. And I saw a ton of restaurant tech build up, got a ton of venture capital funding, and made a huge impact. Companies like Olo and Toast and a handful of others in the restaurant tech space. And I felt like we really could have made a huge impact, and I just didn't get to see that materialize. So
great. And so that means they're still operating.
Industry is still operating, very light footprint. I do not talk to those founders anymore. I really have had minimal communication for about 3+ years, but they're still operating. I've kind of written it off, but my hope is that they succeed and do well, because I think the intention is clear. Is they want to help businesses and hospitality professionals, but I don't have a lot of confidence.
And you still have equity, correct?
Yeah, sitting in Carta. Yeah, I haven't seen anything change there, so hopefully, knock on wood, but we'll see.
So what happened after that? After that whole situation, debacle, obviously you had to collect yourself, get some time. Like, did you go get a job? Did you, start Trust and Will? Like, what happened after that?
Well, ironic because of the crypto craze, I did make some good money in crypto that I did report to the IRS. So if the IRS is watching, I did report at IRS. I mean, I had some money saved up. I floated myself because I was getting married that fall. So I knew I could float us at least to the end of the year, because that happened in right at the start of summer. And I did remember I took my wife to Portland. We went to Seattle because I was pretty serious about looking at Nike. I've always loved Nike. Anybody that's grown up as a sports fan, there's a dream company to work for.
Yes.
And they had an entrepreneur in residence job. I'm like reading this job description. I'm like, this is kind of the dream job. Even if I was rich and successful, I would still want to do this, because you're at Nike making a cush salary as like an intra entrepreneur. It just seemed like the coolest. And then we had some friends from school that worked at Amazon. They're making big bucks, man. And I was just watching Amazon stock, and this is 4 years ago now, watching their stock just go up. That stock is worth a ton now, as they've like 4 or 5x their market cap since then. And I was like, maybe it'd be nice to actually have a real salary. Startups, we don't really make money until we're like growth stage or beyond. So I was about to get married, start a family. I was like, money sounds kind of nice for the first time. So I thought about it, and then I did some deep introspection, and I was like, I can't do it. I got to do a startup. I'd been sitting on an idea for the previous couple of years while I was building industry that I started to explore pretty deeply. And then by chance, coincidentally, Daniel and Brian, who are my co-founders at Trust and Will, they worked at a top tier software development agency here in town. Super impressive young guys at the time. I guess we're still young in our 30s, but we were all randomly free agents around the same time. And I was married or getting married. Brian had already been married. Daniel was dating his now wife at the time. And we just started looking into kind of fintech and digital assets as this theme, where like people are dying, mostly our grandparents or some of our parents, but like, how do digital assets get passed? Whether it's crypto as one example, or your Facebook or your LinkedIn, how do these things get memorialized? And we started asking our friends, and like, there's such a distinction from our friends that were married with kids versus everyone else. It's like, if you have kids, or even if your kids are adults, like, oh, you know what a will is, you know the importance of it. And if you don't have one, you feel kind of guilty or shameful that you're like, I really should do it. And then for anyone who's, single, not married, it's like maybe, something you've thought about, but not until COVID hit. And we started looking at the numbers in like late summer, August and September of 2017. We're like, holy crap, like how does over half the population not have this? And then the half that does, our parents' generation, they haven't touched their documents in 5, 10, 15 years. They're sitting in a box in their garage. They're at the bank. They're in the attic. They don't know where it is. And we started looking at how big this industry is, how much people are spending for an estate plan, $3,000 to $5,000, how much confusion there is around it. There's no education in high school or college around basic finances, let alone estate planning. And we saw all this digital innovation taking place in fintech, investments like the Robinhoods and even the Coinbases of the world. TurboTax is just a behemoth of a company under Intuit and servicing 30 plus million Americans for their annual tax filings. Why doesn't this exist for setting up an estate plan online? So we started thinking about like, well, how do we approach this? Like, what's the right way to approach it? And very early on, we're like, we have to get a brand. Like, there has to be a brand that consumers can name off the tip of their tongue. And trustandwill.com was available. Like, I'm very, like, we're searching, we're like trying to figure something out. And like, trustandwill.com was available, bought it right away. And then I look on Facebook, URLs available, Twitter, Instagram, all the social channels, all of it was available. And I was like, this is like a sign from above. Went all in on it. And then we didn't even incorporate the company. We're just kind of acquiring assets and building up this thesis around trust and estates. But San Diego at the time had the quick pitch. It's the largest pitch competition here in San Diego. Had some connections with the TCA folk and a few others that sit on that with what's now Connect, but at the time, San Diego Venture Group, Mike Kren and the team. So we applied. We're like, hey, what do we have to lose? Nothing, right? We applied, you submit a video recording, and then a panel reviews it, and then they move you through like several rounds of, kind of March Madness until you get to the top 10. And then you pitch on stage at Qualcomm in front of 500 people, investors, VCs, entrepreneurs, local startup supporters. And we made it. We made it on stage in front of 500 people, gave our 2-minute pitch. We put up a splash page like the night before just to collect emails. And we took 3rd place. We got one of those big $5,000 Happy Gilmore golf checks that we had to have them write out to Daniel because we didn't even incorporate. We had Ryan Cooter from Techstars, who's local here, who's like, hey, you guys are super early, but I think you should apply to the program. Ultimately got in. And then we had some people come up that wanted to invest. We had some people come up and said, hey, I got to set up my estate plan, or I need to update my estate plan. Is the product live? And we're like, coming soon. It's like many months later, 6 months later.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Right. This is a little bit of me throwing shade, but I have a question.
Okay.
So you were in 3rd place, right?
Yeah.
Were the first two, the first and second place companies, were they biotech or life science startups?
Yeah, they were. Yeah. Yeah. Well, sort of like the first. I don't know. I mean, like, I guess the first company was like defense tech. They had this guy. Man, this guy got up on stage and gave like the most epic pitch of the future. It's like a military wetsuit that's got a battery pack that like gives you superpowers, like Captain America vibes, and like it looked super cool. I was watching, I was like, man, that's freaking awesome. And like, obviously they won. I don't think anything's happened there. I don't know. I don't even remember the company. Mm-hmm. The second place winner was like, this is a weird one. It's like an aquaponics setup that helps you grow pot. Like basically like you have a sustainable fish tank in your house that also grows marijuana or hemp. So I don't know, a bunch of potheads in the audience thought that was a good idea, but we took 3rd place. I'm like incredibly proud because like just to be on the stage, it got the team excited. We're just 4 of us up there. But it was a huge validation that like it really was the forcing function for us to become a company. We incorporated, we started raising money, we got into Techstars, started recruiting a few more to the team, and very quickly had $500,000 in the bank. Very quickly graduated Techstars. We had a product in market that we were selling. Small team, really small team, just working out of one office in a co-working space at the time. But I mean, I just never realized how much I had learned from the previous 2 experiences. And then Daniel and Brian coming from software development agency, building products and services for big companies, really polished, really great first impression. We had an attorney, obviously a trust and estate attorney, join us from the start. We knew we had to build something that was credible. And then ironically, one of my top engineers at industry, we recruited him in to be our head of engineering, and has been amazing. I'm so proud to have worked with him now for 6 years. So just really much like had a redemption win more than anything with the quick pitch and raising that first round, getting into Techstars. It made me feel really proud of myself for the first time in a while.
Yeah, that's very dope. So I kind of want to back up a little bit because I kind of want to track, where did you first get your initial funding? So when
Yep.
you did the quick pitch, right, you guys had no initial funding, right?
No, I mean, relatively self-funded. We had some money that we put into it, but we knew we wanted to go raise money. That was like, what's the quickest possible path to getting product to market, making our impact in Techstars a lot bigger, and we knew we wanted to go raise some money. So we raised.
And that was the first competition or first pitch event that you guys did as a group, correct?
Yeah, no one in our network even knew that was on October 6th, 2017. No one even knew that we were working on this for a couple months. We wrote a LinkedIn blog post the following week because we knew that there was a San Diego Business Journal article that was going to go out featuring us. And then we incorporated on October 26th. So all very quickly within the month of October. And then immediately went into fundraising from angel investors. We had.
What was the timeline? How from that pitch event to your first, when you started raising it and actually got funding? What was the time?
First check started hitting like the first week of December because like we very quickly set up Gusto and payroll because I was like, I haven't had a paycheck in 6 months, and same with Dan. And we're like, we need to pay ourselves something. We paid ourselves nothing that first year, but it was something. And we think we went to Vegas on a very budget trip. My wife and I went on a super budget Vegas trip to celebrate. But we raised $410,000 from angel investors, mostly local, which was fantastic. Just like they're investing in us. Like that to me, for any founder that's listening or watching this, you want to raise money from people who believe in you. The earliest money in needs to be your biggest supporters, the people that you can text when you're most concerned or scared about something, and also people that have skill sets that you don't possess or you don't have on your team. They fill in those gaps: marketing expertise, product expertise, engineering, etc. That's such a rare opportunity. And we pulled in. We have an investor who, she was on the TurboTax team for 10 years. We had two guys that took 2 different companies public. Like we just had this incredible group of angel investors, just a mix of people, no commonality. And Techstars pulled in 120,000. So we had 530K in the bank by end of January of 2018. So like we had some money. We have at least like a year runway with a small team of 6. It was just very much like we need to get product to market and start selling it so we can build up a case for a seed round.
So that was pretty much a 90-day window, right? Between
we pitched in 90 days. We pitched about 90 angel investors. We had about 26 that invested, not including Techstars, and checks from like 10 to 40,000 across the board.
Wow, that's definitely dope. So I know you had mentioned previously that when you were starting industry, that if you had to do it over again, that you probably would have moved up to the Bay and did some fundraising there. What made you decide, you know what, like I'm going to stay in San Diego? This is the place we need to be and to scale.
Our startup market has matured so much. Like 2017 was like the last year of like the old days, in my opinion. I think 2018 was like total shift of mindset, where even in industry, when we raised our seed round, like we were driving revenue. I remember going up and pitching to Bay Area, like tier 1, tier 2 VCs, and they're like, "Why are you in San Diego?" And I'm like, "It's awesome. Have you been? It's amazing. There's great talent coming out of the universities. There's amazing co-working spaces. It's a happy place. We're on the border of Mexico, so there's great dev talent across the border." And the local government, Kevin Faulkner at the time, had gotten really behind startups, for the first time in local government. It felt like the right place to build. And like none of that changed when we raised all of our venture rounds for Trust Them All. Like the same reasons I sell, San Diego 5-6 years ago, the same reasons I sell for today. The difference now is that almost every venture fund has a portfolio company down here or more. And the round sizes and valuations are getting close to LA, Bay Area, New York. So I hate that that's a vanity based on the valuation, but it makes you take the market more seriously. And it started to move away from this biotech life sciences stamp that we've always had into a more enterprise and consumer tech focused market. So in 2017, we called it an angel round. Pre-seed wasn't like a thing back then. Pre-seed funds are all over now. They're solo GPs with like 5 to 10 million in the fund size, and they're writing $100K to $1 million checks. But for us, we raised from this awesome group of angels that we didn't have that opportunity at Trust at Industry. We raised from one local guy, one in the Bay Area, and then one on the East Coast, just through random introductions.
Yeah, and plus there wasn't any crowdfunding, or it was like in the beginning phases.
Kickstarter and Indiegogo, like if we would have pitched equity crowdfunding back then, no one even know what at the time. No one even knew what Kickstarter and Indiegogo was. That was like over 30. I swear, it's just like a different vibe back in 2015, 2016.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I have a question about that in a bit, but
yeah,
I definitely want to stay on Trust and Wealth. So you went from initially when you pitched, did the fast pitch. How many people were on your team? And during that 90-day, spurt where you guys raised a lot of money, it went from what team members to how much did you grow in between that time?
Oh, not a lot. Yeah. So 3 co-founders, we had an attorney and an engineer. So 5 of us. We had a couple contractors at the time, but we didn't grow the employee count past 6 that first year. And it was, 6 head count. We'd had some engineering talent through the workforce development program. So they subsidized the cost, I think $15 an hour. And then we paid another $5 an hour for students that were coming out of the
Tech Hire
Code Academy. Yeah. I forget the program name. They're basically coming out of the Code Academies, some of the local Code Academies. The San Diego Workforce Development Program wanted to increase the job market of entry-level engineers, which was at the time underserved. And we had the opportunity to have some of that cost subsidized through that program. So we had about 4 engineers that we had worked with, and we ended up recruiting full-time the strongest of the 4. And he came on full-time and is still with us today as an employee. And he's leveled up like crazy. It was awesome.
You know what? Speaking on that topic, I just have to ask you this question about the coding schools, because I have a very good friend of mine, Mike Roberts.
I love Mike Roberts.
So, yeah. And so he is a big proponent, obviously, because he has a code school and coding the careers. And so his thing is that he doesn't think that a lot of the bigger companies in San Diego want to hire engineers that come from code schools. There's this stigma of degree versus going to a coding school. And now you obviously have grown Trust and Will to a certain point. Have you seen, through your walks, what's the word I want to use? The vices or the rumblings of, hey, we need to hire people who have a CS degree as opposed to, going to a boot camp. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, unless it's like a high level, like pretty senior dev hire, it comes down to experience. I don't care where people went to school or if they went to school at all. Like if you have somebody who's talented, equipped, hungry, culture add, not just a culture fit, but a culture add, especially on dev. That for us has always been a kind of a core focus for us. We have for a 40-person company, we have a smaller dev team, and we have 2 that came out of Code Academies. They're fantastic. They've grown 2-3 levels up in their kind of track in the last year or 2, respectively. And I don't think once in the interview process did I even ask where they went. I don't think I asked anybody where they went to school. Because it doesn't matter to me. Like that's not important. I want to know you as a person, personally and professionally, and what your hustle is going to be. So I asked a lot more abstract questions in my interviews because I want to get to know the person. But I'm a huge proponent of the dev shops, the code schools in town, and the dev talent that they produce, and they're fantastic for entry level roles. And they should be the ones that you're trying to accelerate the timeline of their growth and potential at your company, not let them just be a stepping stone and then they leave you for something else.
Yeah, exactly. I obviously, in my company, we the plug, we help early stage Black and Latinx startups. And so that's kind of one of their advices where, hey, we're going to get the people from the code schools because, the people that the CS, it's always an issue or some kind of drama with, okay, these guys got to have CS degrees. And it's like, well, you have to pay money for that. It's a lot of money and folks don't have that money, at least the people that we serve. So,
It'll be interesting to see. I think it's in its infancy still, but like the income share agreements that we're seeing from some of the code schools in the Bay Area, if that's a way to offset the student debt load that some students take on, because like if people want to go the 4-year degree route, if they want to get their master's in CS and beyond, like I love that, but putting yourself 6 figures or more into debt just doesn't make any sense. So the income share agreements that we're seeing from Lambda School and a couple others that are going that route are interesting. I think it'll take a couple of really big tech, I think of the Microsofts and Amazons of the world, to adopt it so that they're not putting this burden on their employees for the first 5 to 10 years of their career to pay off those loans themselves, that they're actually taking it out of their paycheck, but they can live debt free.
Yeah, and I know Google has kind of sort of started to venture in that lane with their career courses. I know for a fact that Amazon and Google has a real shortage in program managers, and so they developed a course, for program managers to complete, and they're hiring people, that complete that program. So, they're taking matters into their own hands and really, making things happen. So, hopefully, some of the companies, take that, and kind of take notes and do something with that. So, so I want to talk about something that it's probably a hot topic for you. So, talking about trust and wills, there's a certain company that unofficially does trust and wills, as we like to joke around, in my crew, with GoFundMe, and so, like, your company is focused on the formal process of putting it together, right? So, explain how simple and easy it is to really complete your trust and will. Go through the process of, for me, of filling out, whatever you need to fill out in order to get your trust in your will, and explain the difference between the two.
Yeah. So I think a will is what most people are familiar with through movies, pop culture, books. We've grown up with it. Maybe your parents or grandparents threatened to leave you out of the will as reprimanding you for skipping class in high school or something. But effectively, whether you choose a will or trust, I'll explain a little high level the differences. But like effectively, if you are thinking through your entire life, everything you own, every account you have, your kids, your house, all of these assets, and even your healthcare decisions, if you get in a bad accident or you're intubated for COVID, who can make decisions on your behalf? Who can make financial decisions on your behalf, let alone do not resuscitate, basically pulling the plug, ironically, pulling the plug. And these are really serious decisions that make it very uncomfortable for families if they're not created, these documents are not created. And on top of that, your final arrangements, like, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be rebirthed as a tree or have a sustainable burial? What songs do you want played at your celebration of life? Do you want to be sad and sappy, or really fun, positive, to celebrate the life if you've lived a great, fulfilling life? And the biggest thing with a will or dying without an estate plan, and this is why it has such a negative stigma in the industry, is probate. Probate court is the process that the states have decided every family will go through with there's a certain asset threshold. Otherwise, there's an expedited probate. But assume you have a house, you have a couple kids, a couple $100,000 in investment accounts, etc. Going through probate, if that is not documented and there's rifts between siblings, it can tear the family apart. And this is where mostly adult children, like in that 40 to 60 range, dealing with the death of their parents, really have a strained relationship. And for anyone that's listening to this that's experienced it, the pain. And they ultimately don't talk to each other. They get litigious. They start suing each other to what they think they're entitled to. I was there for mom and her deathbed. You were out partying in Mexico. I should be entitled to the house. You didn't do anything, like, screw you. And this happens all the time. So our concern is that you can still have a will. It can be out of date, but it has to go through probate, and it can still get contested for a whole variety of negative reasons. But the hope is that people keep it up to date, and we try and make it as easy and pain-free as possible, not just to create it, but to update it as things change throughout your life, and that ultimately you don't experience that pain of probate. Now, a trust, the main reason that people set up a trust generally avoids probate. And think of it like this box. You're putting everything in this box, and the box is relatively private. Your assets, your home, your investment, financial accounts, everything can be renamed or retitled in this trust. And most people do this because it avoids probate. Most families, the largest asset they'll ever own is the home that they live in. And if you have all of your assets updated and cataloged in the trust, it makes that transition, the estate settlement process after death, a little bit smoother with a lot more privacy. Whereas a will, because it goes through probate, or if you die without an estate plan, it goes through probate. There's public record of assets that flow between families. So the reason why a lot of wealthy families, why trust fund kid have this wealth connotation, is that really wealthy people use very complex estate planning to protect their assets as they can and to prevent the government from taxing their kids, etc. And it really comes down to just ensuring that what you want from your entire life, right? It's like the cap table to our life, that all of those assets, every decision you want made happens the way that you wanted it, not somebody else. And you don't really do this for yourself. You do it for your family. Like as a husband and father now, I don't need a will. I don't need an estate plan. If I'm dead, I'm gone. But to make it easier for my wife, to make sure that our daughter's set up for success, if we have a second kid in a year or so, I want to make sure that these documents are updated, because I have my parents named in our estate plan. They're older, but they're still around and in good health. But assuming 10, 20 years from now, maybe that's not the case. My brother, his wife become a key part of our estate plan. So you can swap people out with different roles. And as your assets grow, your wealth builds, you buy a new house, maybe you move states. These are significant updates that you need to have in the estate plan, whether you choose a will or a trust. And we wanted to make it easier for families, not just to set it up, but to keep it updated. And for the 40% of Americans that have set this up offline, probably through an attorney, we wanted to open up the funnel, the top of funnel, to get them to come into Trustable's ecosystem and to be able to do this easily and affordably. So the process with us takes anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. You don't pay until the very end, so you get the full test drive before you have to purchase the documents. We have customer support standing by 7 days per week, and we have an industry-leading 5-star customer experience that's all cataloged on Trustpilot. And we've really invested in the ease of use of our product, the inclusiveness. So inclusive meaning same-sex couples, inclusiveness of communities of color that typically have really low adoption of setting up these types of documents. Because wealth does not have to be a trigger. If you're a parent, or if you're a homeowner or a caregiver, those are 3 very big reasons to why you should be thinking about setting this up. And we've tried to just make the experience as painless as possible, which I think we've done a good job of doing that. But that's really from the start, and probably for perpetuity, why we exist as a company. Our mission is to help families protect and preserve their legacy, and to not procrastinate this, because you're not required to do it the same way you're not required to set up life insurance. Did that make sense?
Yes, it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now, do you have attorneys on staff to where folks? So let me start by this before I ask that question. So everyone has a login, correct? Where they have all their information, or am I off base? Okay.
Yeah, so the entire product is digital, and all the documents are state specific. So estate planning documents are fairly black and white if you're not a complex estate. Every state has a specific design of how these documents are to read, and what you're going through and the product looks and feels like TurboTax. It's not intimidating. We have customer support standing by. We have a lot of explainers and FAQs and an incredible Learn Center to educate our members as they go through this process. And everything is auto-saved throughout. So if you're like, I don't want to think about guardians to my kids yet, or I don't know if I want to be buried or cremated, it's auto-saved. You come back and you log back in with security, good security in mind. The physical documents, which are still required in most states, this is my actual trust. This is what we ship out to customers in 48 states. There's a handful of states that now allow for digital execution. We were the first company in history in Nevada and Florida to do a digital estate plan. So you don't have to do this physical set of documents. So you can go digital with the signature, the notary, the witnesses. Those documents are stored in your dashboard, the fully executed documents, whereas these, I have to keep a physical copy because of the antiquated laws. So what we are building towards as a company in the years to come is an end-to-end digital experience in all 50 states that you never go offline. In fact, we never want you to have to leave Trustimo's ecosystem, because you're bringing your family members in. You're bringing in the connection of all of the assets you have with various institutions. And the reason why is that when you eventually pass, we want to make it as easy, painless, and least expensive as possible for families to deal with the death of a loved one. It's emotional, it's a financial toll, and the process typically is a lot of paper pushing and chasing down accounts that it can take 2 to 3 years to do this. Why can't it take 2 to 3 weeks, if not a couple days? So with the money, we've now raised 23 million in venture capital. We've helped 200,000 families start this process. We have the highest rating of any online or probably offline estate planning platform or experience. We offer attorney support in a handful of states. So people that want additional peace of mind or have complexity, that they actually want to talk to an attorney, we offer that support as an additional charge, similar to TurboTax Live. They have a live CPA service. And we're building this foundation to really go all the way throughout the creation, throughout the management of that estate, all the way through the settlement process. So we might have customers for 40, 50, 60 years, and even able to help their families after death and keep them within this kind of flywheel experience, because estate planning is the multi-generational transfer of wealth. And that's the vision that we're optimizing for. So much bigger than just documents.
Talk about a business model. Talk about a continuous business model. Ooh, if there ever was one. I
think we're one of like a few companies that has an after lifetime value. We talk about lifetime value, but we have an after lifetime value in our business model.
Yeah, that's definitely dope, because even when someone passes and they have to look through that information, right? Yeah. They're not gonna want to just get up and leave, and where they're gonna go, right? You know what I'm saying? So you might as well keep that account and keep it going. So it's easy, it's painless, and yeah, that's definitely genius, if you ask me. So what are you guys looking forward to in the future? Like what's on the horizon for Trust and Will?
Yeah, I mean, we're always thinking about growth. How do we continue to improve our conversion? I mean, we have so many people that start this process, they don't finish, they don't pay. Those are families that are left unprotected effectively, right? And so we're constantly thinking about how do we improve the experience with our Learn Center content, with our member success, and just super targeted tactical email campaigns to continue to push people through the funnel to the finish line. And then this kind of second chapter of Trust and Will is really moving into the estate management side. So I mean that through two different lenses. On one end is we do have a product for financial advisors, a lot of these service professionals that we end up surrounding ourselves with as we grow our wealth, a CPA, a financial advisor, an insurance broker, et cetera, or an estate planning attorney, is building out an experience that's collaborative. So we have a product for financial advisors where they can educate and introduce their clients to Trust and Will. They can see where their progress is. Have they started? Have they finished? What product did they choose? Do they need to follow up because they know that client's going to have a baby or buy a new home or sell their company? And on top of that, we have a shared access feature so that the client can grant access to the advisor to view their documents. It unlocks a treasure trove of data and information that actually helps that advisor, because most advisors want to see the estate plan. They have their clients bring in a 3-ring binder that's got dust and might even be on a typewriter paper from decades ago. And this digital shared information can actually help the client's holistic financial plan. They can upsell them into better products and services for their kind of financial strategy. We also, on the consumer side, are digitizing the trust funding process. So a lot of friction points is that people, once you set up the trust, you have to go fund it. You have to retitle the assets. I'll use a simple example. So the Cody Barbo checking and savings account at JPM, I want it to call the Barbo Family Trust checking and savings account. All of the big banks and legacy institutions, you have a form you have to go fill out, or if you have a house, you purchased a home, you got to get the deed retitled for the home and the name of the trust. Kind of a bad experience. It's almost always offline. It's expensive, and it's just not easy to do. That's the frustrating part. So digitizing the trust funding process is a huge investment we're making over the second half of this year. And this connectivity. So the fact that Plaid, if you're familiar with Plaid, if you have a mint.com or personal capital, you pull in your Wells Fargo, you pull in all your investment account information. So digitally connecting all of the accounts we have with different financial institutions to the estate plan. So you get this kind of real-time visibility into where do you have accounts, where can you be thinking more strategically about your estate planning needs, or if you're tax, you have tax implications, or if you want to ping your advisor about your financial plan, because you're seeing this really in-depth visibility, far deeper than what a mint.com or personal capital is showing because of the estate plan. So that connectivity is being fueled from a product perspective, but we have a ton of partnerships that we've activated already, like Fifth Third Bank, the 15th largest bank in the country. We have some really exciting ones that we'll be announcing over the next couple months here, all big names, household names that people will know. And I would say more than anything, we're probably looking to do one more growth round at some point in the near future to continue to grow the team, invest in our product, and try and drive the best customer experience at the end of the day. Because that's, I said it earlier, it's why we do this. We're helping families. Most of us on the team are married, we're parents, we're sons and daughters. And like, we know the pros and cons of doing this better than most people. So, we have a purpose in the work that we do, and we carry that with us to work every day, and it makes it a lot more fulfilling.
That's dope. Two more questions. One, have you seen a rise, or have the numbers increased as far as like usage rate on your people getting trust and wills on your platform during the pandemic? Because unfortunately, obviously, there's so many people and families that have been affected. Death or folks that are worried. Hey, I never know. Next couple months, I don't want to be caught out there, and I have a family. So, have you seen an increase, or has it been kind of steady?
Yeah, we saw a huge spike in like literally correlated with the number of cases rising in the country in March, April, May of last year. We saw record search volume for online wills, online estate planning. Attorneys, there's not enough estate planning attorneys in this country to support the number of people that should have an estate plan. So attorneys were basically saying to existing clients, hey, I can't even take an appointment for you with a month, 2-3 months out, let alone a new client. So people are like turning to their financial advisor, they're turning online. I need to get this done. It's going to give me peace of mind for what could happen in the worst case scenario. Hopefully, it doesn't, but it did to 500,000+ people. And we were, I don't want to say overwhelmed. We are a technology startup. We're designed for scale. It's not a lot of lift on the back end. We didn't have to do a huge round of hiring to support the growth. In fact, we're like, how do we do something more noble than just open up the floodgates for this growth? And we rolled out our healthcare initiative at the start of the pandemic. So all healthcare professionals got a free will-based estate plan from us if they opted into it. And we did a bunch of marketing around that. We also had one for teachers as the fall kind of kicked in. And over 11,000 teachers and healthcare workers opted into this free will from us, which we felt really good about. My wife works in healthcare. We get a lot of healthcare professionals that are partners and family members of the team, teachers as well. So kind of hit close to home. And that for us was a big noble win, I guess, from the kind of the initial volume of cases of COVID. We surpassed COVID numbers just for our own marketing tactics, and we've managed to massively overcome that, now a year later, with just being a business that people are kind of going back to their normal lives. I see a question here from Andy, actually. So anybody with an existing estate plan, if it's a will, you can come and create and update the estate plan, the will-based estate plan. Very straightforward. You sign, notarize, have it witnessed, and you're good to go. With a trust, if it is a trust-based estate plan, a revocable living trust, we do what's called a trust restatement, which just think the layman's terms is you're importing your trust into trust and will. You're making the necessary changes that you'd like. And then that document will then live on top of your existing estate plan once it's signed, notarized, and witnessed. So hopefully that answers your question. And then we're looking into like maybe this answers your question here. So we get a lot of requests for people that want to like scan to upload their existing paper estate plan into Trust and Will. We don't offer that yet. We are very much looking into it, because for us, think of 40% of the population is significant. To take an out-of-date estate plan, there's a lot of pattern recognition and matching through AI and machine learning that we can leverage, because the documents are very state specific, that we could auto-generate an up-to-date estate plan. But that's something coming soon.
So is that like including like, for verification, your ID, birth certificate, that kind of thing? Or
yeah, you don't need to do, we'll do some identity verification for the people creating or updating their estate plan, as well as those named in the documents. But no, we don't collect social security or any PII information. It's not necessary. Effectively your estate plan, you're cataloging stuff. So like you could just say, I have a Wells Fargo account. You don't even have to specify checking, savings, brokerage, etc. You can just kind of go, it's all about just cataloging it. Because at the end of the day, your family's going to have to go through Wells Fargo's process to gain access to these accounts. Kind of a pain in the butt. But you can get specific. You can put account numbers and account values. That's where we're trying to get away from this like manual data entry, which is effectively the old way, and into this real-time account. If you log in through Plaid, it's always going to have all of your Wells Fargo accounts and the exact value within those accounts. You wouldn't have to necessarily report it. It's trying to spend less time creating the estate plan or updating it. And then with these connected accounts, it creates these real-time triggers that might lead to a more complex estate, might lead to opportunities for your financial planner to come in and make a recommendation, et cetera.
Yeah, one last question before we get up out of here. This is about the planning estate attorneys. Do you have someone on your staff to where they look over these, obviously these paperwork is, it's a legal document. So what's that process like?
So our first hire was Patrick Hicks. He's been operating as a trust and estates attorney for over a decade, from everyday families to ultra high net worth. And Patrick was our first hire. In the early days, we had a formal advisor to the company who's a 20-year business law, trust and estates attorney. And it took us a long time to bring our documents to all 50 states. We just started with California and Texas with just a will. It took us most of that year, including a $2 million seed round, to bring that to majority of states. At the Series A, we raised $6 million. We brought the trust to market. Took us most of the year to roll that out. We spent a lot of time with quality assurance in when our software is generating these documents, those documents are accurate. And we've invested, and now at this point, we've raised $23 million. We have a 2-person QA team. And we go above and beyond to make sure that those documents are 100% accurate. And really the only room for error, it's usually user error. They might misspell a name or misspell an asset. There's some AI that we can implement in the next year that'll kind of help correct that, just kind of missing. Like if I just spell CDY instead of CODY, it might just catch it. Hey, this isn't really a name that is consistent with the other documents, or the name in the other documents, and try and call that out. But the attorney support that we offer is really there for that additional layer of peace of mind. So we have the customer and the attorney basically have a letter of engagement that they sign. And then that attorney can actually practice law. They can make legal recommendations, like say, hey, Luis, you're closer to your sister. Your sister should look after your kids for the obvious reason. She's got a great job. She's much more responsible than your brother. No, hopefully I'm not picking on you. Versus like our support, our basic chat support and phone support. We have to be very mindful of unauthorized practice of law. So our chat support can't say that specific of an example. They could say generally people choose a close friend or family member as a guardian, someone they trust that would have the financial responsibility to look after their kids. Or the attorney can help thinking through some different scenarios, assuming you die and your kids are going to receive a windfall of cash. Maybe you don't want them to get a couple $100,000 at 18 years old. I know I would have probably abused that. The reality is like you can put an age-based provision in and think through the different ages and maturity levels that we're kind of at 18, 24, 30, et cetera. They can also talk through if you need a more complex estate and trustable is not a good fit, that's totally okay. If you need a special needs trust because you have an adult with special needs, an adult child with special needs, we can't accommodate for that today. It's something we hope to do in the future. So there's selective examples of people that are not a good fit for us. They might be in like a third marriage with kids across all three. It's just like a decision tree that our software is not designed for because it is an edge case. And that's okay. But the attorney network is mostly there for peace of mind and for expertise.
Yeah, that's definitely dope. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with us and me and talking about trust and will. Where can folks find you? Social handles, website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so trustandwill.com. We'd love for you to give our product a test drive. I promise you, if you're a parent, a homeowner, or thinking about your own parents and their estate plan, like we are an amazing fit for the everyday family and stand behind that with our customer reviews. And then personally, I'm very active on social. I'd say Twitter and LinkedIn are probably the best. So at Cody Barbo on Twitter, and then Cody Barbo, first name, last name on LinkedIn, and should be good to go.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And I would love to connect with you on some other stuff because I feel that, people in our community, are they don't necessarily have wills and trusts, and I want to kind of implement that more, into, our customs and norms. So definitely would love to, chat, have a sidebar with you about that as well. And so
that'd be awesome.
That we're doing over at We The Plug. So.
Yeah, Luis and everyone else that attended and those that ultimately listen to this, I really appreciate the opportunity to share the story. If you have any interest to start your own company, if you're working on a startup, I mentor a lot of startup founders. I'm very approachable, so don't feel like you're bothering me. I try to set time aside in the evenings, if not on the weekends, to try and chat with founders and help them with whatever it may be. And that's how we build a better startup community here in town in San Diego, and why I'm proud to be building Trust and Will here.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and you have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, Luis. Thanks, everyone.
All right, you have a good one. Bye-bye.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thank you.